Hello, my name is Jade, and I'm just going to do a short introduction to start because I really want to get into what we're here to talk about today. And I'll tell you a little bit more about myself later for those of you who don't know me. But we're going to talk about emotional intelligence and the competitive edge it gives you for leadership and organizational success. And I want to talk for a brief moment here about leadership and organizations because it is quite often we separate the two, but I really want you to think about your organization as an umbrella. And underneath the umbrella of this organization is your entire team. And without this entire team, without clients coming into your business, your organization to keep this running, if we removed all of the people, there would be no organization. So I really want you to start thinking about your organization as you. You as a leader, a professional leader within this organization, you are a big part of what creates its success, right? And when you have success, when your team has success, when your clients have success, it all feeds into the organizational success as a whole. Okay. And without people, we don't have a business. We don't have an organization. We don't have a company. So, really keep that in mind as we go through this emotional intelligence piece and how that applies to leadership and really how it's going to help you be successful within your role. Okay. Now, my eyes are going to be bouncing around all over the place here because I want to make sure that I am answering any questions. By the way, as we roll through this, um, anybody who is currently here, this is being recorded so that it can be shared later. If you would like to ask some questions, but you don't want to be in the recording that's publicly shared, save those for the end. I will stop the recording at the end, and then you can ask questions with more context so that we can really align what it is you're trying to do with this information and your leadership within your organization. Okay, so never fear, there will be a chance to. If you're okay with sharing on camera, that's great too. Just know that this is going to be shared around so that everybody can benefit, right? Now, I want to take a moment to talk about why emotional intelligence, that's EQ there, you'll see that a lot, matters in leadership. And let's get into why. Because really, technical skills alone are not enough anymore, right? A lot of us get into these leadership roles because we are master technicians, right? We were working and it was recognized that we were great at what we were doing. So we got promoted, right? We moved up into this leadership role. However, when it comes to them being in a leadership role, we may have the technical skills of what we were doing. And props to you if you can take that a step farther and you're able to teach somebody else those technical skills so that they can become kind of a taskmaster as well. But the issue or the disconnect that we have a lot of the time when it comes to leaders and what makes you stand out as a high performing leader versus a low performing leader is whether or not you make the flip from that taskmaster to now somebody who is actively managing a group of people. And the way that we do that effectively is through emotional intelligence. Because guess what? Every single decision that everybody makes within your organization is always put through their emotional filter in that moment, right? And if we have low levels of emotional intelligence, then the filters that we're using are focused on getting short-term results. And when we always focus on those short-term results, we miss the long-term goals. And when we miss those long-term goals, we don't feel aligned as a team. Things aren't getting done the way we'd like them to get done. And there can be a lot of disconnect. So it is vital to be able to make this switch from being this taskmaster and even a trainer of people to really managing everyone's emotions. That's what makes you a high performing leader. And let's talk about a few key points as to why this is here. Okay. So, really, that emotional intelligence is going to differentiate you as that high performing leader, like I just talked about, right? You now have a skill set where you understand it's not just about those tasks that you're doing day in and day out, it's helping manage the filters in which these decisions are made through, right? And those are emotional filters. And it's also going to drive employee engagement and retention, because if you like where you work and you feel as though you've got leadership that can help your whole culture of your work environment be a constructive, positive, uplifting one, then you have great leaders who have higher levels of emotional intelligence and you want to stick around, right? What is the purpose in job hopping and going somewhere else if you're already getting what you need emotionally in this space? And there's something important to note too about these emotions. We're talking about it a lot, right? And I mean, everybody's got different perspectives on it, but there was actually a study done at Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario, Canada in 2020, where they actually tracked how many different thoughts we have in a day. And it can be anywhere between 6,000 to 70,000 thoughts. And all of those thoughts end up creating different emotions in which we make our decisions through every single day. That's a lot, right? When you sit down and think about that, think about your day and how many thoughts you're having. I mean, 70,000 is huge, but with each thought that we also have an associated emotion that goes with that. And it's not always a constructive one. So being able to, again, really connect and engage, get those your employees to engage and stay with you is so helpful and vital in your overall organizational success and leadership success, right? Because we are a leader, we are a piece of this organization. The other thing when it comes to this emotional intelligence and leadership specifically is that it creates resilience within your team, right? Great leaders, emotionally intelligent leaders, are able to pass along that skill set to their team. And when their team is emotionally intelligent, that is where resilience grows. So you don't have people dropping off, leaving, going because of some small drama that's come up, a small challenge that has arisen, a feeling that's been invoked, and they don't just shut off, right? They don't just flip that switch and go and they're checked out for the rest of the day and they're not productive, right? When we're great leaders and we have this high level of emotional intelligence, we can pass that on to our employees, to our team, and that is how we build this resistance. This also helps build a collaborative culture within your team, because emotionally intelligent teams, they like to communicate to one another and they enjoy communicating with one another. And when we can communicate openly, that's where collaboration happens, right? And that's where we get some of our best results, some of our best work done, and some of our greatest sense of purpose when it comes to our career. So it is incredibly important, you can see, for leadership to possess high levels of emotional intelligence if they want this organizational success to happen, to occur, right? These are all great results, but now it's a matter of how do you actually get this to happen? Now, I think this is a good time to really introduce myself a little bit more as we've been talking about what we're going to get into here. Hi again, my name is Jade. If you don't know me already, I'm a rational emotive behavioral techniques coach and consultant. And I have over 10 years of experience in leadership and management positions in multiple different industries. Actually, for myself, it was quite easy for me to get into an organization and move up the ladder very rapidly. And a part of the reason was, yes, technical skills came easy, but a big piece of that was my level of emotional intelligence. And I want to pass that along to you. All right. I want you to be able to thrive and enjoy emotional intelligence and really leverage it as much as you can to have an incredibly successful and happy career and an organization that can take you far too, right? Because when the organization does well, you do too. So let's get back into this emotional intelligence stuff. And if I'm going too fast, by all means, just let me know. I'll have some coffee. So let's talk about this. When I'm working with either corporations or organizations, and we're talking about bringing up emotional intelligence or elevating it, there's kind of 4 pillars we talk about. Sometimes I say it's 4 steps, but there is a process to do this successfully and to have it happen as effectively as possible, right? Because we really want to see the efforts that we put in and the benefits come from those as quickly as we can. So let's look at these 4 pillars of professional emotional intelligence. Okay. Now, number 1 is the self-awareness piece, which is understanding your own personal behaviors and impact that they have on the environment around you. Excuse me. Number 2 is self-management. That can also be interchanged with self-regulation. Okay, both mean the same thing. And it is really regulating your own behaviors or managing your own behaviors or selecting your own behaviors in which you exhibit and having the control and the power to do so, right? And you'll see in here, I also have that regulating emotions and adapting responses, right? So that those 2 words can be interchangeable. Whatever word you like the most, go with that. Okay, we want you to lean into this as much as possible. Number 3 is social awareness. So recognizing others' emotions and needs, right? That social awareness bit, when we can understand the people around us, very important because businesses are people, right? We don't have them, or organizations, we don't have them unless we have people. And then there's the relationship management, which is where you're building positive, influential interactions. So it's interactions with a high sense of purpose and thinking very long term out into the future and what the impact of that's going to be. These are the 4 steps. Now, in order to be as successful as possible when it comes to being an emotionally intelligent leader, you need to go through these 4 steps in order. Okay, we always start with self and then we work our way to others. I like to think of it as internal first and then external second. All right, because in order to really get how do I want to word this? In order to really get everything we absolutely can out of this experience, we need to make sure that we first can exhibit those behaviors before we're asking that of our team. Okay, so really think about it as, if I can't do it, how can I ask that of my team yet, right? Remember, you're the leader of the organization, right? Or a leader in an organization as a part of a leadership team. So if your leadership team cannot express or show professional emotional intelligence, how would you expect your team to be able to do so? Now, you might have some amazing top high level performers who already show a lot of this. And if you do, by gosh, appreciate them and show them your love, because it is amazing to have them on your team. But if you as a leader don't meet and even exceed them in that capability, there is a high probability that they will leave and you won't be able to retain them. So it's really important that you elevate your professional emotional intelligence. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to go through all of these 4 steps, and we're going to talk about kind of what they are, what's the benefit, and then run through a little scenario as to what that really looks like when it's in play. Because again, I want you guys to get as much as you can out of this interaction with me as possible so that you can take it and use it immediately. Self-awareness. So this is the foundation of emotional intelligence. And let's talk about why it's important. Well, why is it important? It's understanding how our emotions influence our decisions, right? If we are not self-aware, if we don't know what we don't know, how can we change that? How can we influence that? You could imagine this as I don't want to say a team member who you see them doing this consistent behavior over and over and over again. And it's something that you've been meaning to talk to them about, but you don't. And you're hoping that it changes, but then it doesn't because they have no awareness that that is an issue, right? They have no awareness that that's a problem, and they have no awareness that that's impacting their workplace in a disruptive way. So for ourselves, we need to start bringing up our self-awareness. And there are lots of things you can do to increase that self-awareness. I can give you some resources to look into that later on. But really elevating that self-awareness piece is going to help you realize what it is that you can work on, right? Then there's the identifying strengths, weaknesses, and triggers, right? Now, if trigger is a word you're not a fan of, you could use a word like provoked or influenced or impact. Basically, anything that's going to say there was some kind of stimuli, right, that has invoked a feeling inside of me, an emotion inside of me that I've labeled as negative, we'll say, or disruptive. It's another word I like to use for that. And now I'm exhibiting a behavior that's not benefiting me, right? So if trigger's not your word, stimuli, some kind of impact, some kind of influence, okay? Whatever word works for you and resonates with you, go with that because you're more likely to take action and do something with that, right? Being able to identify where you're strong, where you're weak, and what your triggers are is really important in terms of growing in your own emotional intelligence. And then lastly, that's the improved confidence and leadership effectiveness, right? This comes from self-awareness as well, because we are aware of these weaknesses and these strengths that can help boost our confidence. And when we present to our team as a confident leader, they then instill that confidence back into us, right? We set the tone and they mirror it back to us. So it's really, really vital that we bring up this self-awareness piece, and we're doing self-awareness exercises and practices on a regular basis because our strengths, weaknesses, and triggers all change and grow as we do. So it's really, really vital and really, really key in this whole process. Now, let's have a look here at self-awareness and benefits for leaders. So with self-awareness, it really helps leaders in an organization to make more informed and strategic decisions because now you have the opportunity to pick and choose your behaviors because you're aware of the impact they're going to have down the road. That's an incredible tool, skill to be able to have, right? That strategy to be able to use that, to pick and choose is incredible. And the impact it has is always a constructive and positive and healthy one in your workplace. And the next piece here is that it builds trust and credibility with your team, right? When you are self-aware, when you can acknowledge your weaknesses, when you are better able to understand yourself, that does build trust and credibility within your team because you see yourself even as your team perceives you, right? So then you have a team that's thinking, oh, they get it, right? They can see that. They understand that about themselves. So they trust you. That elevates their trust in you. And in turn, right, you're going to find that you have team members who are better able to perform because there's this level of trust between you, which is amazing. And then you also get this increased self-confidence and adaptability. That adaptability piece in particular is really important. I want you to think about that quite a bit. If we go back to that being able to make more informed and strategic decisions, which is really being able to pick different behaviors at different times, that's what makes you truly adaptable. But in order to get there, you have to be self-aware and you have to leverage that understanding of what it is that you are good at and not good at. Now, imagine this. Let's run through a scenario here about self-awareness in the workplace. You're leading a team and it's a high stakes project and it's falling behind in schedule. And your instinct right away is to take control and push harder to get it done, right? We've all been there. Something's happening. It's not happening fast enough. It's not happening the way that we wanted to. So we're going to take over. We're going to get through this, and then everything will be fine, right? That short-term win. We're looking for a short-term win. Well, what if we had a moment of self-awareness? What would our actions then look like if we were practicing these self-awareness exercises on a regular basis? I'm going to run you through that. So with that high stakes scenario, right, instead of that push, instead of that grab and I'll take care of it, let's take control, instead of this whole takeover, you're just going to call a short meeting and ask, where do you feel stuck to your team, right? What support do you actually need from me to get this done? And instead of blaming, you end up facilitating solutions by encouraging this collaboration between your team. And your team sees that you trust their abilities. And in return, they're going to trust you more as a leader. This is one of those examples where we have to give something in order to receive it. And trust is one of those things. If we are not giving trust to our team, there is no way they're going to trust us in return, right? So by having this higher level of self-awareness as a leader, you're going to have a team that trusts you. And then what happens? Well, the result of that is that your project, it gets back on track. And it's not because you forced it, and it's not because you took it over, right? It's because you adapted your leadership style to the situation at hand. You made a strategic decision that was well informed. And that is amazing. That's just the beginning of self-awareness. And I think if you take the time to have a look at a situation that you were in previously that was similar to this, right? That project, and there's a deadline, and you want to take control over that. What were the actions that you took afterwards? Did you put trust in your team to get it done? How did you show up as a leader? And are you doing things on a regular basis to discover where it is that you may have weaknesses when it comes to emotionally managing your team of people? Now, let's move on to the next pillar here, because I don't even know if an hour is enough time to talk about all of this today. So self-management, right? This is where we start to master our emotional control. And for those of you, again, if you don't like the word management, you can replace that with regulation, whatever word resonates with you. So why is it important? Well, leaders set the emotional tone for your teams. Okay. So just like I said with trust, whatever you put out is going to be reflected back towards you. So if you are very emotionally regulated, if you have good self-management, typically, majority of the time, you're going to get that reflected back to you. There are, of course, other instances where this doesn't happen, but you set the tone for your team. So you showing up and being able to self-manage is vital and is incredibly important for your team to be able to start doing that themselves, right? It prevents stress from driving your decisions. And when we make those decisions based on the stress filter emotion that we have, we're looking for short-term gains. We don't want to feel stressed anymore. So we want to get out of this feeling as quickly as possible. So our short-term decisions don't really have a good impact on our long-term goals, right? And that ends up being an issue when we aren't able to do that. So it's really important. And then it increases resilience in high pressure situations. So again, because we're able to self-manage that feeling of stress, it means that we can make better choices and align those choices that we're making right now, even though we're stressed out, to match our long-term goal and align it and get the results that we want, get the organizational success we're going for, and be that high performing leader that we want to be for our team. So the benefits for us, I mean, I feel like I talk about these constantly, but let's go through them. It's this maintaining professionalism under pressure, right? You're going to develop this very calm way of being when you're able to select the behaviors you want to exhibit, regardless of what you're feeling emotionally. You're going to present as a very professional individual, and people, your team, they're going to view you as that as well. And it's also going to reduce the stress and tension in your workplace entirely, right? Because our team takes the cues from us, if we are staying calm, and then that can help calm the whole environment. When you're in a leadership position, it is vital to maintain this calm composure, right? And the way we do that is by self-managing. And when we foster this calm environment, then we can focus on that solution-oriented work culture and less on that blame, what happened, why did that happen space, right? Because it's already occurred. And yes, there can be some little tidbits that we pull from that, but regardless, we're working forward now. This is where we can make change. We can't make change back here anymore. It already happened. We're looking this way and right now. So it's really, really vital to be able to self-manage, because then you get to reap these benefits, right? Now imagine this. You're in a team meeting and a senior executive publicly criticizes a project you've been leading, and you feel your heart rate spike, right? Because who doesn't like to be criticized in front of their group, right? And that frustration starts to bubble up inside of you, right? And instinctively, you want to defend your work immediately, as well as your team's work, right? You have this whole team of people you've been leading, and now you're being criticized for everything that you've been doing. It's frustrating. Now, we could make a decision through that frustrated filter, or we could self-manage. Let's say, for example's sake, that we actually did some self-management here. What would this look like? Well, rather than responding defensively, maybe you would say something like, I appreciate the feedback. Can you share what specifically concerns you? And in which case, your team, who's going to be watching you awfully closely, right? Because they worked on this with you, they see that you're not rattled. And instead of a tense back and forth conversation, everything stays constructive, and it reduces the stress for everybody in the room. And after the meeting, your team feels safe and supported because they saw how you handled that pressure. And you've set the tone for a work culture that values that calm approach and thoughtful solutions over that reactive conflict. All right, so self-management plays a huge role into the success of your organization and your team and how they show up. Now, I don't know if some of you are kind of running some scenarios through your head right now and thinking like, okay, so there was a time where I had a very similar instance like this in this meeting, this scenario, where I was criticized for something that I had been working on. And I rolled into giving reasons right away. Okay. A reason for this, a reason for that, a reason for this. That's defensive behavior. Sometimes people call it excuses. You might have a different label for it, but it is the behavior of giving reasoning as to why you did everything you did, right? Now, I don't want to say that there's anything wrong with that. However, we've just elevated the stress level of everybody in our environment, and we're leading from a place of stress, in which case our team's going to meet us there because we as leaders set the tone. That getting curious makes a massive, massive difference, and asking for more context about opinions, right? We have many different variables that we put our plan through that maybe this other person doesn't know yet. But how are we going to explain that to them if we don't fully understand where their criticism is coming from? Maybe there are other things that are in play that we don't know about yet, right? Especially if they're the executive above us. So, really taking into consideration how each interaction is happening and how you're self-managing in those instances is incredibly important if you want to have this success, this organizational success. And organizational success is a environment where people like to be and enjoy being. And that is possible. Now we're going to switch gears a little bit. With emotional intelligence and these 4 pillars or 4 steps, the first 2 we just talked about are internal, right? We did our self-awareness and we did self-management. Now we're going to flip externally. So we're going to focus outward on the people around us. And even our internal work, yes, there are elements that you pick up on or work with other people on, but we're really focusing on ourselves and our own changes and our own behaviors in that self-awareness piece. So now we're flipping, okay? Social awareness. It's the power of empathy. And why is empathy important? Well, leaders who get their teams build trust and loyalty. And a team that is trusting and loyal to their leader is a team that gets things done, right? Now, with this as well, you're going to notice that it also enhances communication and your team dynamics, right? Because empathy, when we are able to show empathy amongst a team, we feel like people care that we're there. People care about what we do, and they care that we show up, right? We are valued. We are a contributing member that is appreciated in the team. So this enhances the ability of people wanting to actually talk to one another, right? You would much rather talk to an individual on the street that you know, who you have some rapport with, who has some empathy for what you're going through, versus a stranger. Well, you can think about that in terms of the workplace dynamic that you're creating too, right? That you're trying to influence for your team. Do you give them opportunities to communicate? Do they know each other? Are we opening the door and allowing moments of empathy to happen amongst our team? That's going to enhance your team dynamics. And then we've got, it prevents workplace misunderstanding and conflicts, right? People are more patient with one another when we have empathy for each other. So it's a really, really powerful tool, this social awareness piece, when we start to understand that social awareness is really growing our empathy and understanding others. Now let's talk about more benefits, right? And what this is going to result in when we are empathetic in our leadership, right? Or we have social awareness in our leadership. Oh, excuse me. I gotta keep drinking my coffee. My throat's very dry. So it creates a more engaged and motivated workforce. Again, You're going to work a lot harder to help somebody that you know and you have empathy for versus a stranger. Okay. It strengthens team collaboration and synergy. You have a team that actually enjoys connecting, enjoys talking to one another. And in turn, because they do that, they collaborate more. They're more comfortable being transparent with each other and sharing ideas. And it helps you anticipate and address challenges before they escalate into something so much bigger than they need to be, right? You don't end up having all of these little dramas that slow down your day. You don't get tripped up on the small things with your team because they feel like they are valued and everybody there truly cares what's going on with them. Now imagine this. You're leading a project and you notice a shift in energy during a team meeting. You all know what I'm talking about, right? It feels like you're talking, you're sharing information, and then all of a sudden it's like the switch turns off, right? Within a team member, maybe a couple team members, you can feel it in the room, you can see it on their face, you can see it in the body language. They were once really into this and now they just seem to be withdrawn entirely, like they're disengaged, they're checked out, right? And then they start to contribute less, and there's this subtle tension in the entire room and you're thinking, what has happened here? Can you think of that moment? You know the one I'm talking about. Think about it for a moment, okay? And maybe this scenario that we're going to talk about next is exactly why it happened. So when we have this social awareness, what does this look like in action? Well, a team member shares that she's feeling unheard. Her ideas in meetings often get talked over by the louder voices, and you all know the people I'm talking about, right? Maybe it's you, who knows? But you acknowledge their concern and you say, I really appreciate you sharing this. Let's make some adjustments so that everyone's voice is heard, right? Because it's likely not going to come up in that exact meeting, but it may be something that is addressed and comes up later on. You might come to this conclusion, and I hope you sought it out. But in the next meeting, because you know this and you are aware of it, you're going to implement a round robin format, which basically ensures everybody gets a turn to speak, right? And then the team dynamic is going to start to shift. And leaders, it's going to be up to you to withhold that, right? Especially if you have some pretty upbeat, chatty people who really want to share and are extroverted and happy to share quickly. It's going to be up to you to make sure that they hold off so that your more introverted or ambiverted individuals have the opportunity to express what it is they want to express. And then that unheard team member starts to contribute more and the overall collaboration improves, right? And if you had ignored this disengagement, if you hadn't sought out why that was happening, it could have turned into resentment. It could have then festered into poor performance or even turnover, right? You may not have been able to retain that employee. And by noticing these subtle shifts early, you can prevent a bigger issue from unfolding. But it's all a matter of being socially aware enough and then figuring out what's going on. If you don't have enough context, if you're not sure what's going on, actually seeking that out. Now, lastly here that I want to talk about is relationship management. Okay, and this is really where our influence on our team comes in. Some people have told me before they don't like the term influence. You can switch that up with impact. It's the same thing, right? Your ability to have an influence or an impact on an individual to elicit, provoke, invoke a certain type of behavior, right? And ideally a behavior that is constructive and not disruptive. So when we are using relationship management, when we actually implement this influence piece, we create these stronger relationships, which means we have stronger leadership impact. right? If we don't have these connections with our team, if we're not connected with the individual people that are working with us, we can't have the same level of impact we want to have. When we're disconnected, yes, we have people who are working with us on a team, but the stronger our connection is, the stronger that impact is. So working on those is very important, right? For those moments where you need to have impact, where you need the influence. You can't just always ask for it and get it at the level you require if you haven't done the prep work in your relationship management and that strong connection. And it also, when you are able to do this and you work on these relationships, it really boosts the collaboration and the productivity of everybody, right? Because when you have people who are connected, they want to help each other more. So this creates this onspur or momentum of productivity because they want to help each other out. They want to balance out the workload on their own because they actually care about the people they're working with. They have a relationship that's managed well by their leader, right? And it really drives this positive, constructive, and healthy workplace culture that everybody wants and dreams of having. And you can have it with that high level, emotionally intelligent leader. Now, let's talk about more benefits of this. Well, it builds that higher trust again, which equals high performance in your team, right? High trust, high performance, because again, they trust that whatever they do, you have their back. They're not afraid to take steps forward. They're not afraid to show initiative. They're not afraid to perform. Then you get an increased influence and impact as a leader, right? So you're going to be in a position where when you ask something of your team, they're not only going to meet that, they might even exceed your expectations. And not because you asked them to, but because they truly want to, because you have cultivated a beautiful relationship between you and them and have helped manage it amongst each other as well, right? And then this also enhances that employee retention and the job satisfaction because you have people who want to stay there. They want to be there. It's not just because they have to, it's because they truly enjoy the people they're spending time with. And to go and try and job hop and seek that out other places would be a risk for them, right? They already know they've got it here. They have it right now with you. So why are they going to leave you? They want to be with you. You're an emotionally intelligent, high-performing leader. They love spending time with you. They want to be led by you. Now, imagine this. You're leading a high-stakes client project and tensions are rising, okay? Deadlines are tight and your team is feeling pressure. You overhear two of your strongest team members arguing over responsibilities. Oh, the worst. And it's very, very clear that there's frustration there between two of your strongest. All right. Now, I'm sure if any of you have come up with this before, you're already feeling like, oh no, I've got two of my strongest people and they're fighting, right? They're not going to want to continue to work together. They're not going to want to stay together. Someone's going to leave. And that is not fun to deal with. So let's say we use relationship management to navigate this, right? So by giving them space to voice their concerns, you uncover the real issue. One feels overwhelmed because the other keeps adjusting the project scope, and the other feels unheard when suggesting improvements. You mediate a constructive conversation and ensure both feel heard and valued. Now, your ability to navigate conflict with emotional intelligence ends up earning respect from these two strong team members, right? You're seen as a leader who guides rather than dictates someone, and others start to trust and look up to you. And by proactively managing the relationships, not just between you and other people you're working with on your team, but team members as well, you prevent these small conflicts from becoming reasons for burnout or disengagement or losing people, right? This creates a more positive and high retention work environment where people don't just like to stay there, they thrive being there. There's no way they're going to want to leave you, right? They're going to want to stay there. You're going to get to keep your strong team members, which is great because hiring people can take so much time and retraining people. We want to really work with the people that we've got. And although there are going to be times where we do have to bring on other people, it's fantastic that you can earn respect just by having a conversation with people, right? And validating each other and validating them before they are able to do it themselves by helping them work through that and navigate that. It's absolutely incredible to see it at play and to be able to really experience that. And it truly sets you apart from so many other leaders. Now, with emotional intelligence in action, here's just a few other leadership scenarios, some of which we've kind of already touched on, right? But what you're going to see is when you apply emotional intelligence to these situations, they're going to not be as difficult, and it's really going to help you shine as a leader and stand out as a professional leader. And one of which is that managing difficult conversations, which we just talked about, right? There are so many times where we have interstaff miscommunications and conflicts that people cannot work through on their own because they have a lot of other things on their plate, but it still has to happen. And that is what truly phenomenal leaders are able to do. They're able to manage those conversations for people who cannot do it for themselves in that moment. And then there's navigating organizational change, right? You've probably worked with teams where you've had some people who have been happy to do the same thing for years and years and years. And now all of a sudden you're bringing in a new program and they are not happy, right? But being able to navigate their feelings around this change and help them adapt to that sets you apart as a leader as well. And then motivating disengaged employees, being able to re-engage an employee so that they're contributing and showing up and valuing others that they're working with is a huge way to set yourself apart as a leader. And you do that with emotional intelligence because we are all humans. We have between 6,000 to 70,000 thoughts a day, and with each one of those thoughts are associated emotions. So being able to navigate those effectively is going to help you re-engage employees, right? And then there's the leading under pressure, which we talked about a couple of times as well. And being able to select the behavior that's most constructive, that's going to get you that long-term result. Now, with all of these 4 steps, we've talked about what these look like, but there are multiple different ways to elevate them, to exercise them like a muscle so that it becomes an automatic response in you. And you do that through these exercises. And it's not just these ones. You can think about these areas to work on, but there's copious amounts of other things you can do to really elevate yourself to a top performer. Now, emotional intelligence for organizational success. So that high emotional intelligence organizations, they end up experiencing things like higher employee satisfaction and retention. Again, people don't want to leave a place that they enjoy being in, especially one that helps them emotionally feel good on a regular basis. It increases productivity and team synergy because everybody is emotionally well taken care of within the team, right? Then you get this enhanced productivity because people want to help each other and you get this great synergy going. And then on top of that, those organizations also get to experience really strong leadership pipelines. And what I mean by that is you end up getting a leadership team that is really focused on making their entire team feel valued, feel like you're always investing in them, feel like you care about their professional development, whether or not they're moving positions, that you're still there for their own betterment, right? And you've got a plan for them. You've got a vision for them, and it's aligned with theirs because you are emotionally intelligent enough to be able to align those and connect those dots. And you make them feel valued and that they have a place with you long term as well, right? So it's really, really incredible what organizations get to experience when we have these high level, emotionally intelligent leaders. So investing in emotional intelligence is really what's going to get you huge long-term growth for your organization, your leadership, and your team members as well. All right. Now, I'm getting close to the end there. That was my little speed it up reminder. So key takeaways from this that I really want you to think about always and forever is that organizations are run by people. People have emotions. Everybody has them. And it's something that we need to, as leaders, be aware of and making sure that we elevate our emotional intelligence to be a competitive leader, right? Developing that emotional intelligence and working on things like our self-awareness, our self-management, our social awareness, and our relationship management is what's going to enhance that engagement, trust, and performance in our teams. And there are practical strategies that can be applied immediately to see that growth, right? When we start to, again, for example, I talked about it a few times, when we set the tone and we show our team a certain emotion, it is likely going to be reflected back at us. But we as leaders need to be able to initiate that. And we do that by being emotionally intelligent enough to do so. Okay, so now in a moment, I'm going to stop the recording because I want to say thank you and I want to give people the chance to ask questions off camera if they have any, to really line up what they're doing, the context that they're thinking about, and this emotional intelligence piece, and really figure out how it puzzles into what they're trying to accomplish. So I'm going to do that in a moment. But before I shut down this recording and we go, I wanted to say you can scan that lovely QR code there. It will take you right to my website. You can call and email me anytime in terms of connecting with me. What I do is I help organizations through corporate trainings. I help individuals through pre-recorded courses and one-on-one coaching as well. And I quite often do speaking events too. So if you ever want to look at elevating your emotional intelligence because you see the value in that and you can see where that may be missing in your workplace currently, then please reach out anytime. I am happy to help. And now I have talked long enough and I want to stop this recording and give people the chance to ask some questions.